What's up, guys? I hope you all are doing well. Welcome back to my YouTube channel and welcome back to another YouTube video. In this video, we will be looking at exercise 66 of our Python exercise tutorial series. Without any further ado, let's get to it. So guys, I should mention, right, that this exercise 66, it's the last exercise of our Python exercise tutorial series. The next video after this is going to be on a completely new, tutorial series. I have not yet decided what to go for as yet, but I do hope that whatever I choose, you guys enjoy it as much as you've enjoyed the Python exercise tutorial series. Also, I should mention, right, this exercise 66 is not dealing with file handling. So the couple of exercises before 66, we looked at file handling and exception handling. So exercise 65 was the last exercise on file handling and exception handling. This exercise here, 66, the last exercise in the Python exercise tutorial series, it deals with something called recursion. Okay, recursion, recursion. So this is a very, very important topic in Python. Okay, you cannot afford to overlook the concept and topic of recursion. And now the reason why I say that is because my university module, the one I'm currently working with at the moment, it's called Data Structures and Algorithms in Python, right? And recursion falls under the topic of data structures and algorithms in Python. Okay, recursion, as the name implies, is when something happens basically recursively. And by recursively, we mean that there's some kind of loop, some kind of maybe definite or indefinite loop. That's what recursion means. And recursion is a topic or concept that deals or relates directly with functions in Python. Functions as in those bits of code where we use the def keyword or the def keyword followed by our function name and parameters and so on. So that's literally the whole point as to why I'm including just one exercise on recursion in our PETS, is because I need you guys to just be aware and familiar that this kind of logic and concept and topic exists, and that it is possible to structure our logic in such a way. Okay, to give you a bit of insight, basically recursion, in what we are looking, or from the perspective in which we are looking at it, even data structures and algorithms, right, it deals with recursion. The point around which that concept revolves is the function, as I mentioned. And specifically, recursion is when a function has the ability to call itself, okay? And it does not only do this once, it can do it once, but the whole point of recursion is to keep at it for a few loops or for a few recursive calls, that's what we call it. So recursive calls, keep at it for a few recursive calls until we get the required output. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. Now let's get to it. Exercise 66. Write a program that reads values from the user until a blank line is entered. Display the total of all of the values entered by the user, or 0.0 if the first value entered is a blank line. Complete this task using recursion. Your program may not use any loops. Hint: the body of your recursive function will need to read one value from the user and then determine whether or not to make a recursive call. Your function does not need to take any parameters, but it will need to return a numeric result. Okay guys, so this program is one that's pretty simple, especially it's a good program from my perspective, right? Because it's one that's not too intense or, in inverted commas, difficult, if this is your first time looking at the concept or topic of recursion. Recursion, all you need to understand and keep in mind is that recursion is when I have a function that has the ability to call itself. Okay, so that's really a one-liner for the concept of recursion. So define main. So all in all, we are trying to create a program that grabs the sum of all values that's entered by the user, and we want to do this using the concept of recursion. So we can do this easily using loops, right? Using loops, this would be simple. You'd fly through this. But recursion, the whole point of recursion is to test our ability, right? The question lies in, what would the programmer do if loops did not exist in the programming language? How would they mimic loops? Okay, I do hope that makes sense, guys. How would the programmer mimic loops in the programming language if no loop or looping structures existed? So let's have a look. Total is equals to, now these two functions we are defining, right? It's pretty simple. We need a main function and we need one for processing. Okay, now the thing is, this function it does not require any parameters, right? They said there's no parameters necessary because it all deals with the user and whether or not they decide to enter a value. So what we can do is the total of all the numbers entered, total, and then we'll call main. So now let's talk about the read and total function. This is our recursive function. Recursion is occurring in the read and total function. So let's sort the logic out together. First things first, we know for a fact that this function needs to ask the user for input. So we'll do a simple please enter a number, press enter to quit. That's good. That's step one done. The input prompt is sorted out. Now, if line is equals to blank, return 0. Return 0 is basically what they requested for, right? They said if the user presses enter, or basically enters a blank line, then you can output 0.0 to the console, which is the same as 0. Okay, so that's if. Else return float line plus read and total. And that's that. And believe it or not, guys, we've actually finished coding this problem. Now this leads me to talk about another very important point about this topic of recursion. Okay, even experienced developers tend to find recursion a bit confusing, right? The concept itself is not even difficult. You guys are probably wondering, this is kind of simple. I expected a bit more thinking or thought processes to be involved in this, and now you're saying we're done. So yes, now the difficulty that junior programmers especially tend to have is understanding the concept of recursion, right? They tend to get confused with how it works. Okay, so basically all you need to do is look for the function that's being called recursively. This means look for a function that's defined, and within that defined function, the function's name itself is being called. Now that there is your function that's experiencing recursive call. So here we see we have read and total function, and within the read and total function we see the function is being called within itself. Therefore, we say that this function is being called recursively. This function has recursive calls to itself. It's making recursive calls to itself. So I hope that makes sense, guys. And really, it's because of this call at the end of the function. This function basically jumps back to the header or the define, the point of definition, and it executes again. So I hope that makes sense, guys. Think of it as a basic. Think of it as defining our own while loop using functions, because we call when we created a while loop, in the previous exercises, we called an input prompt before the loop and inside the loop. The call inside the loop made sure that the while loop kept running. Okay, and really with recursive functions, it's the same concept. By calling the function inside itself, you are making sure that the function keeps running until some internal condition causes or forces a termination of that function, which means it breaks the chain of recursive calls. So I hope that makes sense, guys. Okay, and now guys, we are ready to execute this program. Essentially what should happen is every time I enter a number, it should ask for another number. But if I enter zero, or no, sorry, if I just press enter, the program is going to stop executing. So let's test this out. I will enter random values, and remember, we do have the ability to enter floating points, okay, because we are floating the line object, right, that's storing the input. So 13.0, let's do 14.0, let's do 19.0, let's do 30.0. That's kind of boring, it's all point zeros. Let's do maybe 25.5, 30.5. Yeah, and if I hit enter, the program should stop asking for input. And there we have it. The total of all the numbers entered, 132. So I don't know how correct that is. So let's do a run again. This time we'll enter some easy values. So the total of all those values needs to be 50. And excellent, guys. We see the program, or the recursive calls to the function, is working efficiently and effectively. And with that, guys, we've successfully completed exercise 66 of our Python exercise tutorial series. Thank you guys for watching. Thanks for staying till the end of the video. Good luck with your work, and I'll see you in the next YouTube video. And remember, guys, the next YouTube video will be the beginning of a new tutorial series on the channel. Thanks, guys. Good luck with your work. Take care.